Forgot to ask, you don't see anyone. It's not like a webinar.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 41st episode of A QISSAA with Ishika, quintessential and inspiring stories of South Asian artists, funded by the California Arts Council Individual Artist Fellow Grant. My name is Ishika Muchal, and I am coming to you live from the unceded ancestral lands of the Lenape people, also known as New York City. I am so honored to welcome my guest today, Avneet Kaur. She is an animation veteran with over 20 years of technical experience working on feature animated films. She is head of characters and technical animation at Walt Disney Animation Studios. Since joining Disney in 2004, she has held several key roles, including Simulation Supervisor, Department Craft Leader, and Head of Characters and Technical Animation. Avneet has worked on multi-million-dollar animated feature films, including so many that we know and love, like Bolt, Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Wish, and the Academy Award-winning films Frozen, Big Hero 6, Zootopia, and Encanto. She holds a bachelor's degree in architecture from Birla Institute of Technology in India and a master's in visualization sciences from Texas A&M University. Avneet also serves as a mentor and actively develops talent at Disney through speaking engagements, publications, and presentations at international conferences. She's also involved with organizations like Women in Animation, Women in Technology, Girls Who Code, ASIFA, Rise Up Animation, ABAI in India, and her alma maters. She lives in Los Angeles, my hometown, with her husband and two daughters. I am so honored to welcome Avneet Kaur. Thank you so much for joining me today. All right, I
There you
think
go.
now you're on.
Thank you. Hi,
Thank you for
everyone.
joining.
It's one. Thank you, Ishika, for inviting me. It's wonderful being here today.
I know it's pretty early in California, so I appreciate you waking up and joining the stream with us. So let's get started. Can you tell me what was your journey into arts and animation like, and how would you say that prepared you for your work in animation now?
Yeah. So I grew up in India, and I always loved to draw as a kid. My parents encouraged me for the passion of my arts, and that ultimately resulted in me pursuing higher studies in architecture at BITS. And I really believe that it was studying architecture that gave me a very, very well rounded education in both the arts and the sciences and fundamentals of design. And so, with a desire to then advance my expertise, I came to the US in 2000 to pursue MS in visualization sciences, or computer graphics is the more common term. Um, and then at that point, I was completely intrigued with the amalgamation of the artistic and technical processes within computer graphics or computer generated filmmaking, aka animation, visual effects. And then I opted for that as a career. I initially joined Sony Pictures Imageworks in 2003. I worked there for a year, and then I joined Disney Animation Studios in 2004. And
Mhm.
it's been almost 23 years since then, and there's no looking back. What I'll say is that my parents really are the ones who supported me throughout my life
Mhm.
to really pursue whatever I wanted to, regardless of any barriers. And then, honestly, my husband, actually my best friend then and husband now, Ishan, he's always been a constant source of inspiration and support. And then my two daughters, cannot deny that the last 20 years of being with them has also been a great source of inspiration and helping me pursue what I do today.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up early. I think, especially within the South Asian diaspora, there's so much talk about whether we have parental or familial support going into the arts. So I think it's always lovely to hear how fortunate so many of us are that we do have that support and that community because it is such a hard field. So having
Absolutely.
that bubble of support is really important.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and can you describe what your trajectory at Disney looked like? I know you've held quite a few roles there, and what is your current role and what you enjoy most about it?
Yeah, like as you kind of listed as you were introducing me, I've kind of held many diverse roles at the studio. But I think through all of those different roles, there's one common thread, which is I really love being part of the filmmaking process, and that actually goes back all the way to my love for growing up with Bollywood films. I'm like a hardcore, diehard Bollywood fan. And I think I was destined to be ultimately in filmmaking, given that, obviously I had the arts and technology going in architecture, but the film piece was missing. So I think
Mhm,
me coming into film, and that really helped me even at Disney. So one of the things that I really like about being at Disney is all of the different aspects of filmmaking that I get to collaborate with. Like these are
mhm.
some of the best artists and technicians and filmmakers in the world. So I
Yeah.
think we all have that common goal, and that is something that is inspirational on a day-to-day basis for the last 23 years. Um, and I can speak to a little bit about how we collaborate kind of on animation, because unlike live action filmmaking, which is the regular films that you see, animated filmmaking is a highly collaborative process where every department that goes into the ultimate filmmaking of animation
Mhm.
space is involved, right? So what that does is the level of collaboration, it's about 200 people collaborating on one film, and so
Right.
it's all about listening, really understanding the expertise and craft of every department. And when I say department, all the way from the writers of the story, to the directors of the story, to the visual design team or
Mhm.
the art team that makes the design for all of the characters and everything you see on the film, to the production team who is involved in executing all of that design and really bringing those characters to life or the worlds to life. So all of those different teams, right? So there's about 20 different departments we are talking of. So you're working with directors, production designers, technologists, production, and leadership. So highly cross-functional teams too.
Yeah.
So you still have to work with all of them, especially at leadership levels, aligning why and making sure that you kind of stay in your own lane, but you're also aligning as a larger big picture group. So in my
Mhm.
role, I really try to be a bridge between all of those perspectives, really understand the creative intent, the production realities, which is about schedule and budget, which every
Mhm.
business has to adhere to, and the creative and technical possibilities that can be achieved through the craft of that film or whatever innovative you see on that film. For example, Rapunzel's 70 feet of long hair, or a character like Baymax in Big Hero 6, that
Right.
is an inflated balloon basically, or a character like Hops and Nix on Zootopia, that are basically talking animals. They're like humanoid animals, if you will.
Right.
So I think all of that is just like super interesting. And all of like you can make collaboration work at such a large scale primarily due to trust, because you really
Right.
have to believe in the expertise. You have to, especially in my role as a leader, you have to believe in really trusting your team and delegating,
Mhm.
allowing them to bring their creative best to the table, because every drop in the ocean counts, right? We say so. Everybody collectively is what makes the film, and I think that is the key.
Mhm.
It's not about one person telling others what to do. It is about everybody coming and rising to the occasion together. Like a
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful analogy. I was just gonna say so many times when the average person goes to see an animated film, right, we either leave before the credits or we just see like a bunch of names, right? And we don't know what they do and all that goes into the collaborative process. So I just appreciate you naming that. And
thank you. Yeah.
it makes me think, I think in elementary school or middle school, we had gotten to go to the Walt Disney Animation Studios during the Tangled during the time that that was being filmed and produced, and it was just so fascinating to see the inner workings
You
of
know,
animation
there
studios.
is a saying by Walt Disney that I totally believe in. It is about making the impossible, achieving the
Mm,
impossible.
yeah,
Impossible things are fun to do. So that's kind of like
mhm,
my guiding light, that you every movie that we do is about exploring these imaginary worlds, these imaginary
mhm,
domains, characters. And the thing is, it pulls the audience in for the believability, and they become one with the characters or the world or the story. But the key is that it is something that you don't see in day to day. And so it pushes the boundary beyond that, and it makes you think and reflect and enjoy and get entertained. So essentially, like for me, the craft of animated filmmaking is a joy to be a part of.
Yeah, and well, thank you for doing the work that you find a joy in because it's a joy to watch them. So I know you talked about how you have your root in architecture and kind of balancing this science side and this artistic side. How do you think that comes into play in your current roles? Like, how do you balance the creative and the technical, and how do you bring your own vision into the
Yeah, I know. I think most people think of creative and technical as opposing forces, or creative or technical and artistic fields as opposing. But the way I see it, and because of the kind of work that I do, I almost see them as symbiosis, right?
Mm,
They can't be without each other. So, for
yeah.
example, the technical work or the engineering or the R&D that we do on the software side cannot happen without the creative vision wanting to have a certain goal to be fulfilled. So
Absolutely.
essentially, the creative vision is what is really pushing the technology, as it does
Mm,
in anything. Like, even if you look at your iPhone, your simplicity of an iPhone is, but all the smarts behind it is the technology. So it's very similar to that. So a lot of my career has been about operating in that space between the two. I really like to understand what is it that we're trying to achieve creatively.
mhm,
What would it take to technically make that possible? Sometimes the answer is new tools and workflows that result in publication and research and patents that of technology that we've never developed. For example, you talked of Tangled. There is
yeah,
no movie at that time that was made, and even today actually, that has 70 feet of simulated hair simulations
right.
around the campus, and there still isn't. So the technology that we developed for Tangled came into being because some artist had the vision, Glenn Keane,
Mhm,
essentially, of having that kind of a character. And then we put the best engineers and minds to work, because you have to have, the
right.
engineering behind something like this to really realize that on screen. And I was a part of that team. I was very lucky. I was a part of that team. And that product, or that technology, went on to win the Academy Award for SciTech, scientific technology. So the kind of
Right.
hair that we did. So I think that kind of like, essentially, they're kind of like coexist because of each other. So the artistry
Mhm,
and the technology serve each other. So essentially, my goal in all the roles that I do is to really help make what the filmmakers think, the impossible that they think of in terms of creative, be realized through the technology.
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, because I mean, we all have our left brain and our right brain, right? So they both exist to make us work together. So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'm gonna ask a challenging question. At least if I was asked this, it would be a challenging question. I know you've worked on a lot of incredible films. Do you have a favorite project or a project that stays close to your heart the most?
Yeah, I kind of
Or
just
top
hinted at
2?
that. Like, I mean, absolutely. The first Frozen, where Anna and Elsa came into being, the first
Mhm.
Zootopia, Big Hero 6, all of them are like my, like, uh, in the bucket of my favorite movies, the originals, not the sequels, but the sequels are great too. But I
Yeah.
have been lucky to work on the originals, so I hold them very dearly to my heart. But
Mhm.
Tangled, the one that I mentioned to you, for many, many personal reasons, at that time, we were sort of experiencing a renaissance in the world of CG, if you will, not just
Mhm.
at Disney Animation, but in the industry, because we are talking 2010, and there
Right.
was technology that was created to push the creative innovation just to another level, like to boundaries we had not reached before. Like I said,
Mhm.
the Rapunzel's hair and the characters in that film. Even
Right.
today, it is one of the finest examples of an animated characters, like in the expressions and what they emote and what they feel and what they communicate through the story. But then,
Mhm.
just to be honest, there's two fun anecdotes here. One is that you will not believe it, that when I was growing up in India in high school, I used to have, I'm a Sikh, which is
Mhm.
basically an ethnicity in
Mhm.
India. And I used to, in for religious reasons, we wouldn't cut hair,
Right.
our hair. And so my hair was all the way almost close to my knees, like,
Mhm.
definitely below my waist and closer to my knees. And so in high school, when we used to have what we used to call a farewell, which is akin to your prom here, right,
Okay.
in US, I was given the title of Rapunzel because of my long hair. And who knew at that time, A, that I would get into animated filmmaking, and B, that I would actually work myself on a character
Yeah,
called Rapunzel, R&Ding the technology and creative vision for her hair. So that is
that's
something
incredible.
that is just like, I don't know, destiny. And
Yeah.
then the other big thing why Tangled is so personally close to me, even in comparison to these other beautiful films I talked, is because I was pregnant with my second daughter, Risha.
Mm.
And she was born the day Tangled was released. So she's my Tangled.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So yeah, for
That's
that reason,
beautiful.
Tangled is holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah. I love the first anecdote because I always say that Rapunzel is an Indian girl. I mean, long hair, coconut oil in the hair, waiting for our life to
Yeah.
begin. It's the most Indian thing ever.
Yes, see,
Yeah.
exactly. Regardless of ethnicity, these are all traits that we can relate to.
Yes, absolutely. My best friend, her favorite movie in the world is Tangled, so I think she would be very happy to hear you say that. Um, what have been some of the challenges that you've encountered during your journey, whether that be earlier on in your education or more recently?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I'm a very glass half full kind of a person. So I like to
Mhm,
look at things as like more as blessings. I have so many more blessings than challenges, I would say. I do have some also, like all of us do. But in general, I think I'm very lucky that a lot of good things have happened. I've got a lot of support. I've got a lot of blessing in getting me to where I am today. But if
mhm,
I do have to think about like a few challenges along the way, along the journey, I think some of the biggest ones have been really finding my voice and building
mm,
my path in spaces where I did not see people like myself.
mhm,
I've spent much of my career, especially at Disney Animation, in predominantly male dominated departments. I have been the only woman in Tangled. After Tangled, I was the only woman in my department of like a bunch of guys, men, and a lot of them, like obviously white men. Um, so that has sometimes been challenging, but also they've been incredibly supportive in many ways and helped me find my unique voice. So I'm going to look at that
mhm,
challenge in a positive way, if anything. But it also gave me a lot of confidence in bringing my own unique perspective forward.
mhm,
So when I say challenges, the challenges have never in my viewpoint, those challenges that came along the way in my career or in my life have never been have been less of what I would say something that have left me dejected or struggling, and more as something that have helped me become stronger and
mhm.
raise my voice and be confident and bring what I can uniquely that others couldn't to the table. So I
Yeah,
took pride in doing that. Moving from the east to the west when you are in early 20s was another big transition, and I came here to study. So I went to Texas A&M, and it was a very different world, both
sure. Yeah.
personally and professionally. But it really, really taught me one of the things that really helps me the most, both in life and in leadership, which is adapting and being okay to change, right? And
Mm,
comfortable. So I think I'm so comfortable with that now. You can throw any curveball at me, and I'll be fine. So I think the
mm,
challenge helped me get there. And then I think one of the other things that I will very, very humanly and humbly accept is that one of the most challenging things in my roles has been balancing personal and professional life, right? Like,
mm,
especially when my kids were younger. Now they're older, so it's much easier. But when they were younger, but I did
mhm,
choices that I do not have any regrets on, which is I did not take certain opportunities or roles out of my own, very much my own choice,
mhm.
because I wanted to be 120% as a mom. So
Yeah,
when I got the opportunity again later on, and I jumped at it because at that point, I felt like I had given them the foundation that they very much needed, that only a mother can give. So I
yeah.
strongly believe in that, but I wouldn't say that that was easy. It was tough, but I found my own balance, and I think we all have to find our own. It doesn't compare one to the other. You can't, because you have to find
Mhm,
your own way. I did get a lot of support, I will say. So, but I also think that I always believe in this. If there's a will, there's a way. I was determined to make that balance work, and I found my
right.
own. I wasn't perfect. I'm sure, I could have done things better, and those are all learnings, but I found my balance and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're only human, right? And it just makes me think of like when we're talking about women in the workforce, especially in America, there's so many other structures around the world which support mothers who are also working, right? When it comes to like maternity leave and all of this and navigating that. So it's so important that you're talking about that.
Yes, and so here's what I learned for anyone who's listening. is that you have to ask for what support you need. If you
Mm.
don't ask, you're never going to get it. If you are
Yeah.
asking, you may get a no, you may get a yes, but at least you asked. So you
Right.
have to have the courage and confidence to ask for help or
Yeah.
support. So, for example, I'll give you an example. When I was working a ridiculous amount of hours when my first daughter was born, um, I was working like 60 to 80 hours a week sometimes. And how would I make that work? So I was the first person at Disney Animation who got okayed to start a pilot program by taking a laptop home to do work at home. We are talking
Mm.
2005.
You started the remote work tradition.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
I had RGS. I was like their pilot test person, but that's because I had a need. I went to the people and I said, "Look, I want to do these hours. I don't want to do any less hours than somebody else is doing because I really care about the project, but I also want
Yeah.
to do it in a flexible way where I can take care of my baby and I can
Mhm.
be at home with her because she was so young." So they let me
Yeah.
do that, so it was kind of like a, what shall I say, a breakthrough, if you will. But then, and when I was in Disney, there were no nursing rooms, there were no maternity rooms. All of that is something
Yeah.
that we pushed for, and by the time we got it, I was done with my two daughters, but ultimately we got it at the studio. But
Right.
what I'm saying is, you have to, when you don't see it happening, or if you see it missing, I shouldn't even say happening, you have to come forth and ask. And when you ask,
Yeah.
you will not believe how much you can get. Even if you get five
Mhm.
no's but 20 yeses, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole podcast, right, is about interviewing trailblazers in the arts. But I think from what I've gathered from all the conversations that I've had with my incredible guests, it's not just trailblazing within the arts. It's kind of setting up a path that allows the people who are coming after you to
Absolutely.
have an easier
Place
time,
to
right?
go. Yes.
And like from what you're saying, it's not just about being a brown person in the arts, it's about being a woman in the arts. And like you created that space in a male dominated field for yourself and for women after you and working with you to have just an easier time. And I think that's such an important contribution that goes like unseen. So I really appreciate you doing that and talking about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just if the business is built for men,
Well,
right?
the
Like,
thing
how
is,
are they gonna.
it's about, if you have a seat at the table, I think it is your responsibility to make a difference for those that come up.
Mhm, absolutely. Yeah, speaking of, I guess, legacy and blazing a path for those who come after you, what inspires your mentorship and education and that you share with your students and mentees? And is there something that you take away from them as well when you're meeting with them?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, mentorship, I wish I had learned this word sooner than I did. Because in India, growing up, I did not, I might have subconsciously imbibed that through my great teachers and everyone, but I didn't know of it as like how much mentorship can give to you. So
Mhm,
once I, realized that more, I seeked out mentors. And I
mhm,
also became a mentor myself in many spaces where I, like I said, could give back. So that concept of mentorship and giving back are truly very, very important to me. And
mhm,
I've been fortunate, like I said, in my career to have people who took the time to teach me, challenge me, believe in me, and open doors for me also. And I think we all have to do that for each other, especially in various types of communities, whether it be South Asian, whether it be as a mom community, whether it be people of color, or any community that you can be a part of, right? You have to
right.
look out for others.
Yeah.
So I see mentoring as a way of like paying forward,
Mhm,
making, like I said, the path easier for those who come behind me. And I genuinely enjoy helping. And I kind of start doing that when at starting at like at different levels. I feel like you have to, especially the field that I'm in, it's such a unique field when it comes to many South Asians being in that field too, right? Like animation. So
mhm,
for me, it's about trying to make that impact at the younger age, like elementary, middle school, high school, and of course college and postgrad and
right.
postdoc level also. But I'll tell you one thing about mentorship. That is a very that the way I look at it from my lens, which is it's a two-way exchange. I
Sure.
learn so much from the people I mentor. Their questions, their curiosity often makes me stop and reconsider what I might have taken for granted because I know those things, right? And
Yeah.
bring fresh perspectives. I love working with students. new ideas, new tools, different way of looking at things. And so what I feel is that giving back, helping someone grow, helping someone find the opportunity, and or simply believing that they also can belong here, that
Mm.
incredibly meaningful for me. And in return, I gain a lot because that keeps me curious, learning, and forever evolving. And I think that's the most important thing: growth and evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and for all the people who are your mentees, I think just seeing someone who looks like them or someone who says that, like you were saying, that that path is possible for them is so powerful. So I feel like mentorship should not be slept on. It's very important, like you were
Very
saying.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we talk a lot about representation on this podcast because it is about specifically South Asian diaspora artists. And in animation, I feel like I've read a lot of studies, like that there are more characters that are animals and there are characters of color. And, when there are characters of color, they're usually turned into animals or they're devoid of cultural context that is afforded to more white animated characters. What role do you think that animation has in shaping the narratives of representation in storytelling, and how do you feel like you play a role in that? This is a kind of big question.
Yeah, it is a big question. So I'll answer it in slightly different parts. But so I think animation has a really powerful role from where how I see it, especially at Disney Animation, in shaping how people see their cultures, communities, that may be different from their own. So if you think of Moana, Pacific Islanders, if you think of Mulan, Raya, these are all very different ethnicities and cultures. If
Right.
if you think of even Zootopia, where the animals are talking, but what is the thematic message in there? The message is that everyone can have a place of their own, and
Mm.
nobody needs to be ostracized, and everybody has a value that they bring with the diversity that they come right. So that's basically Zootopia. Even though they are talking animals, the
Right.
message. That is why Zootopia hit $2 billion both in the second sequel and in the first one above a billion, because it resonates no matter who you are across the world, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
that level of resonation can happen when the story or characters are something that anyone can relate to regardless of your ethnicity. So to me, that is another level of like representation you're talking, because you're talking representing human struggles, right? Like
Right.
the racism and all of that is represented in that movie.
Sure.
And you can see that even in the second Zootopia, where the snakes are not accepted, but that is basically a reflection of how the world is today in so many ways, I think.
Mm.
So for me, that representation is just not about just having a character of color on screen. It's about giving that character culture and identity and authenticity that
Right.
regardless of your own ethnicity, you can relate to. So I think I'm talking another level of like relatability here, if you will.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
to your point of cultural representation, I do think bigger studios, smaller studios, all have to take the opportunity to tell stories from different cultures, and many of them are doing that. Turning Red, from Pixar,
Yeah.
right? The story about how Asian communities, the stereotypes in there, that this kid who's always like pressured to study and just stand out in their STEM fields. And then, so yes, it is Chinese representation, but it is reflection of how pretty much, the Asian diaspora.
Yeah.
Raya was something that represent, again, these are Disney Pixar big movies I'm talking of, like there. So I think there is representation in their unique way. I do agree to what you're saying, that there is so much more that can be done. And you know what? Having been at Disney Animation, my ultimate dream is for them to hopefully someday embark on a movie that can be coming from maybe India or maybe those parts of the world. So yay to that. And then what I feel my role, even in the movies that are being made or have been made at Disney, I feel terribly lucky to be a part of teams. Like, for example, on Raya, I was a part of the internal story trust, right? What, not story
Mm.
trust, it's kind of called like an internal cultural committee we had, where
Mm.
we were helping inform how South Asia or Southeast Asia, which is very similar to South Asia in terms of culture, how their manner, culture, and heritage
Mm.
influences how they talk, how they walk, how they sit, how they,
Right.
like leaving your shoes outside the house to come inside the house, like
Mhm.
being soft spoken around elders, and being very respectful and joining your hands, like little things like that were taken note of and represented in Raya, as the main
Right.
character who's from Southeast Asia. And so
Yeah.
I think those I'm able to sit in those rooms and bring that perspectives. So I'm very lucky that directors and teams will run certain things by me if they want to make sure that that is appropriate to the cultural representation from that part of the world.
Right.
So yeah, I look at it as a very positive thing, and I hope they continue. They, as in the industry in general, continues to make films that will show more representation. Because I totally agree. Earlier, you said that when someone sees a Tiana in Princess and the Frog, when someone sees a Moana in Moana, like the way they feel and believe that they are seen on screen themselves, that's just something that no other representation can bring. So yeah, we need to tell stories from different cultures, and hopefully I'll continue to be a part of those films.
Yeah, I hope so. And it's so important, right? Like what you were saying earlier about it's not just about putting a person of color in a story, right? That is, it could be representation, but like the goal is multifaceted, multidimensional, authentic representation.
Absolutely.
And this comes into play so much in theater and film too, right? Like with live actors of like doing the dramaturgy to get the cultural context to make sure that this person is a well-rounded character. They're not just like a diversity hire or to
Yeah,
fill the quota of having someone on screen. So I think that work is so important, and I really admire you for being in those rooms that are doing that work.
thank you.
Yeah. How do you think, speaking of South Asian identity, how do you feel like your identity has shaped your art and your art has shaped your identity and artistic voice?
Yeah, so identity is a very interesting word, right? Like when I close my eyes and think of identity, there are so many identities I have. I have an identity as being an Indian. I have an identity as being a South Asian. I have an identity as being Asian. So now it's broader, right? We're getting
Right.
broader. I have an identity as being an Indian American because I've lived here 25 years. And of course, most importantly, I think the first identity that comes to my mind is the identity of being a mom.
Mm.
uh, Somehow that is the closest to my heart. And so when once you think mom, it's so universal, right? It
Mm.
jumps across the boundary of color and people and ethnicities. Because
Yeah.
so what I'm telling you is what then comes out of this intermingling of different identities is something very unique, and something I think who makes me who I am, which is, so I honestly feel I got the best of both worlds when I came from the East and embraced the West, and started studying here, and then ultimately living here. Part of the reason I settled here is because the movies that we make at Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks, and now even Netflix, right? Like the movies we make in these studios, that is not the kind of movies we were making in India at that time. I did not even have a place to go to study computer graphics as masters in India. That was in the realm of animated filmmaking in 2000, which is why I
Mm.
came abroad to study. So I have
Yeah.
very strong reasons for imbibing what I have from the West. And so that way, in that perspective, my cultural background gives me a very particular lens on the films we make, and
Mhm.
and it's I naturally think about how story or character might be experienced by someone from a different culture and who's seen both parts of the world, right? Like the East and West, inherently there are different cultures. I mean, there's good things in both places, so I try to imbibe that and bring that to the table, right? So that awareness, that experience, I think has become an instinctive part of how I approach my work, which is unique to me, right? And so
Mhm.
then being a mom has also shaped, and I would say being a mom has shaped most importantly my ability to be a better leader, a more giving leader, someone who can, who can deal with many different personalities, needs, and ways of responding. I've learned to listen because of my kids more, better, manage emotions and egos, knowing when to push back and when to step in, and most importantly, always trying to put myself in others' shoes, which is basically what leads to your empathetic leadership, which I strongly believe in, because the key is to get the best work from your team, aka the key is to best your to have your kids be the best version of themselves. But how do you inspire that without telling them what to do, right? So, but for that, most of the times you need to put yourself in that other person's shoes, whether it's your children, your husband, your friends, or your teams like work. So it's the same. I use the same philosophy everywhere. And a lot of that comes from my learned and lived experiences. So I think that ability to see things from multiple lenses is one of my greatest strengths as a leader that helps me. That is basically coming through from the many different identities that I spoke to you about or told you about. So it helps me find that common ground, build that trust, and bring like very different, because I worked with, like, I lead 5 or 6 different teams in my role as head of characters and technical animation. It's a group of about 100 people and about 7 managers, right? Different managers. So these are very cross-functional teams. So how do you help align all of that towards a common vision? So
Yeah.
that ability to be able to kind of see it from everyone's perspectives and make sure I'm looking out for them and looking out for what we want as an outcome collectively as a team, like this big set of cross-functional teams, but still one team. I think that is what really, like, everything that I've learned along the way helps me perform in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're naming such important, like, undervalued qualities of leadership that I think we see a lot in, like, women in these leadership positions, right? Of kind of focusing on bringing everyone up together and knowing when to stand up for yourself as well is such a hard learned skill, but so valuable at the top. So I appreciate you naming those and
I'll tell you what, the thing about Disney is, and all other creative places, any other creative field also, it's just not in animation. It's that people are very talented. And my job as a leader is to bring the best out of them,
Mhm.
right? The same thing as children, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the key. And that is your, like, it's EQ and IQ put
Mm,
together, not just IQ. I think EQ is
yes.
such an undervalued thing, but when you put the EQ in balance with the IQ, that is when
Right.
you can really lead effectively.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not about just making people do what you want, like you said, it's bringing the best out of everyone, and I think that's so important. Yeah, what would you say if you had to talk to someone like you do in your mentorship and your speaking engagements, if there was someone, a young South Asian artist or a young female artist who wanted to go into animation, what pieces of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think one thing that I learned, um, perhaps slower than if I were to go back and do this again, which is bring your voice.
Mm,
You are your own unique voice. Do not look at other. You can look at others for inspiration, but
mhm,
there is no one else like you, and you are unique to yourself. So find that voice and bring that to the table. And this goes as a piece of advice to youngsters, regardless of their field, right? Career or
mhm,
study. Stay curious, stay learning. Do not think you know it. Just always think that you can know more
right.
and learn more. So keep learning, building your craft, your expertise. Definitely focus and go into the depths of what you care and are passionate about. When you
Mm,
care and you're passionate, you are able to excel, and that excellence will show through, right? But you
mhm,
can't do that without putting the right amount of perseverance and time and hard work into that craft. So in this case,
mhm.
the craft of animation. Be
Yeah, and
Share what you know, and at
yeah,
every stage you have no idea how much other people can learn from you also. So be generous. It's okay to share. Knowledge does not decrease by sharing.
mm,
And I think, especially for South Asian, I would say, and I'm very proud of this, own your heritage. Own your
mhm,
heritage. Like I said, the various aspects of my identity make me unique to what I bring to the table at Disney Animation. So own every aspect of you. Be proud of what you have been given. Sometimes things
mhm,
are given, right? Like your parents are given, your heritage is given, your ethnicity is given, your color is
yeah,
given. Be proud of that. See how you can use that to your advantage and confidence to stand out rather than try to fit in where you may not, and you may always continue to struggle. So bring it with you. It can make both the industry, the world, and your diaspora stronger.
absolutely. Yeah, something that I learned from I did a stand-up special last fall, and one of the most important things that I took away from that was I was so focused on, "Oh, I have to tell a story that, like, really matters," because I have to tell, like, a South Asian story, and then I kind of put that aside, and I was like, "I am South Asian, right?" Like, so it's gonna be
Come
that
through.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be that anyway, and let me just say what matters to me. And the takeaway from that, from what audiences who watched said, were like, this is so relatable and how the personal has become so universal. So what
Mhm.
you were saying even like about Zootopia, like how we're getting so much from one story that people will find themselves
It's
in the
about
narrative
widening
you're
your
creating.
perspective and looking at it,
Absolutely.
that what can you find relatable, and you'll see this, like you just said, the word universal. There's so many things that are universal, and there
Mhm.
are so many things that are specific. So you kind of go, like, you go down. It's like the T. I don't know if you heard about the T, the letter T, right? You go broad, you go down. You go broad, you go down.
Yes.
So you go into the depth, but you
Mhm.
don't have tunnel vision. You also go broad. So you go
Right.
up and down from that. So that's called like the T philosophy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd like to think of it like the roots of a tree.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah.
was, yes, tree, and but I was talking of letter T.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I'm just saying, like in my head, I think of
That too,
the depth
absolutely.
and breadth as
Yes,
roots
absolutely.
of a tree.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. Digging into this question a little bit more, what so say someone is like, I'm interested in animation. What would you recommend for them to do training and practice wise to build up to having a career in this field?
Yeah, I think like any industry, the practical experience is the most important. So
Mhm,
finding ways to understand. So obviously you get the academics at universities, college, either through your undergrad, postgrad, masters, or
mhm,
PhD. But I think it is so important to have the practical training. So either internships, if you can. Sometimes you may not get the opportunity. Small or big doesn't matter, but the real industry, like how do these animated films get made? What aspect of that are you interested in, and in
mm,
why? And then go into the once you know that breadth, you go into the depth of like, okay, what do I need to learn more to actually be able to. So I think when I was getting into the industry, we didn't even have the, like, earlier on I didn't even have the internet, let alone the phone. But today, everyone has AI at their fingertips. Use it as a resource to learn, not to know what to do, but almost like,
mm,
when you Google and you get your replies, it's like a like research. What do studios? How do studios operate? Whether you want to use AI or regular Google or just read a book, all these are just resources for me.
research, yeah,
It's about research. It's about getting to understand what happens in the real world. What makes the academics different from the practicality of execution based on the applied learnings, but how do you apply them to actually a filmmaking process? And then finding people in that space. You have LinkedIn, you have reach out. You will be surprised at how many people will respond to you. You may reach, it's kind of like, that cold turkey they say, like, you reach out
mhm,
to people, write to them. Out of 21 will reply. It's worth it.
right.
So the pursuit, the perseverance, and the grit. So if somebody doesn't reply,
Mm,
don't be let down. So like find ways to find more to learn in that craft. But you
yeah,
absolutely have to drive your own fate before you can expect others to drive it for you. So the takeaway here is that there's always more you can do than you think you can.
yes, absolutely. And in acting, we like to say that like rejection is redirection. So even if you're
Yeah.
getting a lot of
I
no's,
mean,
you're funneled
fail,
towards what's for you.
absolutely. Failure is the first step to success. Every time you so-called fail, it's really not failing. You've emerged with a lot more learning, is the way I look at it.
Mhm.
And I know it's
Yeah,
hard, but that is where you need to, that concept of not giving up, having grit, they truly matter, because the
yeah,
people who ultimately succeed are the ones who don't give up. It's
absolutely.
not like they didn't have struggles and things came to them easy. It's just that they didn't give up.
Sure. The tenacity. Yeah, to
The
stay in the game.
tenacity, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You were recently inducted into the Academy of Motion Arts and Pictures, which is huge, first of all. So a huge
Thank you.
congratulations on that. Um, what was the moment of hearing that decision like? And kind of expanding on that, what does legacy or success mean to or look like for you?
Yeah. So for anybody who may not know, because I know we have a very broad audience perhaps listening,
Yes.
um, Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences is the academy that basically gives the Academy Awards, or the Oscars as we call it, right? So for filmmaking, all aspects of filmmaking. So they have many different branches, including live action, music, direction, and animation. So I was inducted into the animation branch. And when I say inducted, what that means is you get picked for it, you get selected or invited to join, and then you are a member for life. So for me, honestly, Ishika, that was a very, very emotional and humbling moment.
Yeah.
I've said this in a few interviews now, but as a little girl growing up in India, when I used to watch Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck coming on what we used to call Doordarshan TV, black and white. I had never imagined that A, I would be in animation, and B, I would be joining the academy. You know, it's
Mm.
a huge, huge humbling moment for me. It also made me stop and reflect on how far I had come, the people who believed in me, the people who
Yeah.
mentored me, the films I've had the privilege to work on, and the incredible artists, technologies, friends, supporters along the way I've had opportunity to learn from. So
Yeah.
first of all, it was that for me. It was a huge moment of reflectance. It
Yeah. I mean,
feels
it's huge for the community. I saw that you posted that on LinkedIn and I was like, that is insane. That's incredible.
And
And well
honestly,
deserved.
it does feel less like an individual achievement and more of
Mm,
a reflection of all the experiences and that have shaped my journey. It also feels
mm,
special knowing that there are very, very few Indians, probably I can count on the fingers of one hand, like that few,
mm.
in the animation branch since 100 years of, or not 100, maybe at least 70 years of the academy being in place.
Sure.
Being part of that room, being knowing that you have, a voice at that table feels very meaningful and responsible to me. For me, success has never been about an award, whether it was, but it is great to have a validation. Those things are wonderful, and I'm incredibly grateful for them. But what matters most is what you contribute through with that work and that platform. So for now, the academy platform, right? It gives me an immense opportunity to continue to give back in much more bigger and meaningful ways,
Mhm,
especially in places like India or other places that are still, I would say, finding their way to make their place in animation in
mhm.
comparison to where I would say Hollywood is.
Sure.
So, being a part of that academy today feels like just another opportunity to contribute to
Mhm.
something bigger than myself and
Yeah.
really to continue learning from all these people in the academy who are amazing in each of their own craft, right? Can you imagine them being in a room where you are surrounded by people who have that much expertise and
Mhm,
to and how much you can learn from them. So I kind of I'm looking at to like a sponge to continue soaking in,
mhm,
and then to really give back and share what I've learned and help
mhm.
continue shaping the future of animation in many different ways.
Yeah. To quote Hamilton, "You're in the room where it happens to bring more people into the room where it
Yeah,
happens."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I really admire your humility in that response. I mean, it's such a big achievement, and you're still talking about, like, what you can learn, and I think that's really important and really admirable.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, as you know, this podcast is called A QISSAA with Ishika, and QISSAA means episode. So, I always like to ask everyone, is there an episode from your life or a story from your life, either artistic or personal, that has shaped who you are as an artist or an individual?
It's so hard to say story. I mean, you kind of heard my whole story at this point, right? Like, so there's just so much that it is very hard for me to kind of condense it to any one story. But I just think if I close my eyes, the one word that comes to my mind is people. I
Mm,
strongly believe it is the people who I've met along the way in various aspects and stages of
mhm,
my life, whether it was my teachers growing up, whether it is my college professors, whether it is the people who at the US Embassy when I was trying to write applications to do my GRE and get here, who supported me and said that, yes, you can do it. And, at that time, like without internet, coming here and meeting kids, I say kids, but they were master's students like me at Texas A&M who were like, you know what, it's okay. We'll help you learn how, what it means to say lift versus elevator.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was so new to these terms. And then, of course,
Sure.
the community that I found here, whether I was in Texas or in LA, there's a lot of good friends in various walks of my life, and the community at Disney Animation, right? Like we don't see, like I've never, I have to admit, as much as I talked of some of the challenges, I've never felt, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm naive here, but I've never felt like being a person of color really came in my way, in the sense that
Mm,
I felt like I was supported. I felt like I was having the advantage. I almost feel like the male versus female was more challenging than being a person of color.
sure. Yeah.
But no, it's
Um,
been great, and I've been very blessed. So a lot of stories, and not one, to contribute to my journey
mhm.
and where I am today.
Yeah, I think people are so important, and I mean, naturally, we know each other through the LA community, and I think
Yes.
I moved to New York last year, and that is something that I so deeply miss is that sense of community. Having those people that you know would catch you when you fall, regardless of where you are, is
Yes.
so important and really holds you up through like the daily and like work tribulations of
Yeah.
being an artist.
I'll also say I've found some of the best mentors and some of the best colleagues and friends that I have at Disney Animation are also, a lot of them are women and men, like equal number, right? Like,
Mm.
so it's just been those people too, right? That community. So many different communities, like you said, and definitely the
Yeah.
HDHF community, the LA community, my kids, like the parents community in school,
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
shared challenges. So I think all of
Just
them,
having your network.
much, yeah, network, yeah,
Yeah.
and your family, like that's the biggest one.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, so I know you work at Disney, and I know there's like IP that we can't share yet, but is there anything that you're currently working on or that you've recently worked on that is out and in the open that you can share with us?
So we have announced. So we have a event called D23, which is like a fan event.
Okay.
It's a diehard Disney fan event that just happened in Anaheim this year. Anaheim, yes, Anaheim this
Mhm.
year, and they announced Frozen 3.
Oh
Frozen 3
my God.
is in the works. It will be released next year,
Okay.
2027 in fall, Thanksgiving time. And then we have an amazing movie coming up called Hexed, which
Okay.
is basically a world of witches,
Mm.
a young teenage witch. So that is coming out this year. That is going to be super exciting. And then the one that I'm working on currently, or just started work on, it is unannounced, but it is the 2028 release.
Okay.
And I'm very excited when I have more that I will be able to share on that. I absolutely will.
Yes,
But
please
for
do.
now,
I've marked the entire year of
it
2028 on
is
my.
under wraps. What I can say is that it is another original,
Okay.
because I think we make sequels, we make originals, and we like to strike the balance between the two,
Mhm.
because you need originals for great characters and
Yeah.
potentially to make sequels. So yeah, so there's a lot of fun stuff I'm working on, but I also I'm very involved in like trying to look at like the future of our animation craft at Disney Animation. So I'm very involved in that space too, and I love that. So again, it's
Mhm.
the spirit of giving back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the spirit of giving back, I have a personal-ish question.
Yeah.
How does someone who is interested in working with Disney as like someone who wants to share a story with you guys to produce, or someone who wants to work on one of your films, what does that pathway look like? And you don't, this is like if you have an answer to this question, you can maybe.
Yeah, I don't directly work with the story department, but I think
Mhm.
for all routes going into Disney, I would say my suggestion is reaching out to the recruiting team. We do have we do have postings posted publicly on LinkedIn or on Disney Careers website that
Mhm.
tell you whether we are looking for an external director or whether we're looking for story pitches or whether we are looking for interns in the story or the viz dev or the TD department. So I think all of that information is shared publicly. I sometimes continue to post on my LinkedIn too when recruiting will come knocking on our door that hey, we are looking for talent, and we should put a call out there. So there's all those routes, but typically that would be going through the right channel, which is basically recruiting, or and then going in from there.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, thank you. I feel
Or
like there's
talent
so many.
development, what we call it.
Sure. There's so many people out there with stories that they wanna tell, right? So just
Absolutely. Yeah.
if there's a way in, there's a way to make them.
Yeah.
What is the best way to find your work?
So I am in Disney animation. To the point of stories, there's Disney television, there's Disney animation, there's Disney live action also, there's Marvel, there's Pixar, like there's all these other like different divisions and companies. And so
Mm,
each of them will have their options of, but through recruiting, I'm thinking to go with the story aspect of things. So it doesn't have to be Disney animation, it could be any other division of Disney. And in terms of finding my work, well, I you can Google. There's many Avneet Kaurs, but there's only one Avneet Kaur at Disney. So you can say
sure.
Avneet Kaur Disney. But there's LinkedIn, there's IMDb. All my credits are listed there. And then
Mhm,
yeah, on LinkedIn, if anybody's interested, I mean, there is the I think there is the in connection in LinkedIn connection email or
mhm,
message you can send, and yeah, feel free to reach out if there's anything I can help with. I'll be happy to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't need an excuse to go watch Tangled again, but also watch Avneet's movies.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise and your story with me and everyone watching. I think it's it's just such an incredible learning experience talking to you and so many South Asian creatives that I've had on the podcast. There's always something beautiful that I take from it personally, learning as an artist myself, and that we're able to share with the community who may or may not know about the fields that you are working in. So I really appreciate you and your time.
No, I really appreciate very thoughtful questions, very well asked, and it's always a pleasure chatting with you, Ishika. So
Thank you. And for everyone watching, thank you for streaming in. This will be available later on as well. So if you have a friend or someone that you think would be interested in animation, send it to them and they can watch the live stream now here on Facebook or on Spotify. All the episodes are updated. If you want to catch up on your drive or your commute, you can do that too. And stay tuned for the announcement for the next podcast. All right. Thank you so much.
thank you. Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.